The owl is a potent spirit animal, often associated with wisdom, intuition, and the ability to see beyond illusions. It's believed to represent knowledge, intuition, and the mysteries of life, encouraging you to tap into your inner guidance. In some cultures, owls are seen as messengers or protectors, while in others, they are associated with warnings or bad luck. I personally can't pinpoint when my quiet obsession with owls began, but I do know that they've interwoven themselves in my life for a long time, way before they started to show up in my art. For instance, my first ever holiday with my husband, like the first big proper one where you pack a bag and leave the country, was to Greece. And we got to, it was just beautiful. I can't really describe it. We got given like the best room in the hotel. Everybody was extremely kind to us. It's to this day my favorite holiday. All other holidays are measured against it. But on the first night, we sat on our balcony overlooking the entire space, and there were beautiful lights and everything over the sea. And this wild owl flew past us and hooted in the way, if that's even the word, hooted in the way that owls do, and landed in a tree directly in our line of sight. I'd never seen a wild owl like that before, and I live in a space that has a lot of nature, but that was something beautiful. It was a barn owl, I believe. No, it wasn't a barn owl. It was a tawny owl, I think. I'm not sure, but I do know that it was one of those moments that sort of put the red ribbon around a beautiful holiday. And from that point on, I think I started to look into owls as some sort of spiritual representation, some sort of magical animal. I'm not sure where that ended up, but it began a certain intellectual interest in what owls can be. Also, that same year, I was taken to a local place called Pariswood, where they let you handle owls. They're tame and they're rescued, and that's how they fund their rescue center. They invite people in and they'll give you a bit of feed in your hands, and the owls will actually fly up and land on your arm, and you really get to be eye to eye with the animal. And I really underestimated how big they were and how powerful they were and how strong they were. And to get those giant yellow eyes looking directly at you is something deeply connecting to nature. I think it was a few years after that, though, before they began to show up in my artwork. I'm not sure when it started, but I do believe it was around Inktober 2021 when I was looking for a theme to base my Inktobers around. As you know, Inktober is a 30-day drawing challenge, and I like to give myself the extra challenge of adding a theme in every single year, so skulls, spiders, all this kind of thing. And this one year I chose owls. And from that point on, owls have never left any of my sketchbooks. In pretty much every single one, there is a space for, even if it's like a mutated owl with horns or things hanging out of their heads, or something strange or weird or unusual. I tap into the mystical symbolism of them quite often. And they're different for me to actually draw, because I tend to lean into more creepy, dark, strange. And although owls are definitely a part of that, because obviously they're in tattoos everywhere, so they've been used in art for a long, long time. But in mine in particular, I'm still bridging that gap between beautiful and quirky and odd, rather than going straight into the innate darkness of them. I just think there's a simple beauty to them. Look at my grin. Now, painting owls is very, very therapeutic. It just does something to my psyche. All those little tiny feathers, the little brushes of acrylic, and for this particular one, I think I've used extra markers for the eyes. I'm not sure. It's spray painted, and then acrylics, and then a little bit of markers going around there. But anyway, I digress. My ADHD kicked in and I went off on a tangent. But yes, the spiritual connection to owls and painting them has become almost a meditation for me. And art I use as a meditation anyway. I spend an hour each morning in my studio before my day has begun, creating and painting and making. And there is something different about painting an animal that has such a rich spiritual history and a rich artistic history that just brings a level of presence to that space. I think also, the more I think deeply about connection to owls and connection to them, there's something warm and loving and wise about them. Their archetype, I think, is, the wise old owl. It is the metaphor, creatively speaking, for tapping into a 360 view of the world and a 360 view of yourself. At least a willingness to surrender to the innate wisdom of that present moment. And that's something I'm trying to do a lot in my meditation practice and spiritual practice as I grow up. So having it leak and bleed and express itself in my art is something I am totally open to. I'm not entirely sure if I'll ever stop drawing owls. There are very few themes that seem to have stuck around this long. I went through phases of drawing paper aeroplanes and painting origami birds, and they tend to be more seasonal in my work, whereas owls in particular have become this almost consistent part of most of my projects. It's rare now that a sketchbook or a painting doesn't have something owl related or owl adjacent in it. I'm at the beginning of this obsession, I feel. Even if it isn't an obsession, it might just be a mild curiosity that has lasted 5 years. Again, if you're watching this, you're probably an artist. You'll understand what mild means in creative terms. But yeah, I'm still figuring out what to do with the motif in every given piece I do. And part of me wants it to tell its own story, and sometimes I want to thread something very deliberate and very conscious into what I want to create. Of course, as with every motif, you step into things that are traditionally expected. The owl and the full moon, or the owl and the crescent moon, is something that's very, very done. But I'm also trying to step out of that as well, and trying to make art that's a little bit more representative of where I am. And sometimes that relies on me doing things that are very, very traditional and very, very representative. And sometimes it means I get to sort of take the complete opposite road, and I'll probably do that in a later vlog where I'll show you some of the other owls I've made and some of the other strangeness I've done with them. But for right now, I'm pretty happy just building my knowledge of how to get the textures and the balance of colors and the levels of intensity that the owls seem to bring. In this last piece, it's my favorite owl I've painted so far, and it's just a really simple painting. I've almost sold it a few times, but I'm not sure I can bear to part with it just yet. She just has this pointed look about her that is very, very special to me, and I don't think I'll ever be able to fully let her go. But you never know. She has her own journey. I'm just a person painting, and I don't mind that, really. She has her own journey. Like every painting, it finds where it's meant to be. For right now, I'm just grateful to hold the paintbrush. So I've done art long enough now to know that you keep pulling at the threads. If it interests you creatively, just keep playing with it. Sometimes it's a stepping stone, sometimes it's a destination, but it's always part of this internal discovery. And you never really understand why you're interested in something in the moment. It's just, in hindsight, over the years, I've looked back and seen why certain animals, certain themes, certain patterns show up in my art over and over again. Right now, I have no idea why owls are pretty much in all of my pieces at the moment, but they are, and I love drawing them, and I love seeing what I can do with that motif, and yeah, we're just going to go from there. I hope you've enjoyed everything that I've shown you today, and a few of them are for sale in my store as well if you're interested. But other than that, thank you for tuning in again. Do not forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I shall see you all very soon.